Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Eeks, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the most broken rune setups and also build and item combinations with certain champions that are going to be Giga OP in 12-17, which is now live. So to know which champions and setups to run, so you can give yourself the best chance of getting free LP in 12-17, make sure you stick around for the whole video. And of course, guys, if you do enjoy this content where we give you all of this information, make sure you leave a like down below. And if you want to master any of the champions in this video, make sure you check out the GameLeap website. Description, comment section, our Challenger players and coaches behind the scenes are uploading daily videos for your benefit. Courses, guides, high elo VOD analyses where we break down what the best players do that so many people don't, but these are things you can easily apply in your games. So check out those links and get that exclusive access by signing up, and let's get into the video. So we're going to start by talking about a champion getting buffed in 12-17, this being Graves, and I mentioned him in yesterday's video. So Gore Drinker jungle Graves, and you might even think about playing Graves in the top lane or in the mid lane, but the most consistent way of playing him is in the jungle, and you can see these stats in Challenger across the world to be an S tier champion, and these are without the buffs, by the way, so this isn't even taking into account what's happening. And what is happening is that your ultimate base damage is increasing at each rank, which is great for Graves when you're going the Gore Drinker route, because it's not like you're going Eclipse with full-on lethality. You're kind of more of a bruiser scaling champion who isn't going to do that much damage, so any buff to your base damages is huge for this build. Also, your Q's cooldown is decreasing at rank 5, so once you have 5 points in this, and you will be maxing this first, it might be a little longer in the early game, but one thing you can do on Graves is actually put 2 points in your Q at level 3 if you're thinking about full clearing, or if you're not thinking about ganking or interacting with the enemy jungler. So this will get you closer to that 7-second cooldown for your end of the line. So Graves Gore Drinker in the jungle, and you can consider running Ghost or Flash depending on the enemy champions. If you feel as if you need the movement speed to actually gap close to the enemy champions, then Ghost is going to be great, or you can just run Flash because the enemy champions have a lot of skill shots, let's say, and obviously Flash is going to allow you to dodge them. So Gore Drinker Graves is the first champion to think about. Now the second champion, this is Hecarim, who has been changed drastically in 12-17 and for the better as well, because now Hecarim, by building attack damage, is going to be even better. So hopefully those kind of obnoxious, annoying to play against builds with Chem Tank are no longer going to be seen. So what Riot have done to Hecarim, they've changed your Q, so you've got better AD scaling in it, and they've also increased it to 3 stacks and increased the damage per stack. So now you'll be dealing an extra 12% damage, and that's also scaling more off each 100 bonus AD you have. So this is a massive buff to AD Hecarim. This is why, as far as these items I'm recommending go, we want to be going Chempunk because the item is just so valuable for how much gold it is, and then Divine Sunderer, and then a Muramana. So all of these items in total are going to give you a bunch of attack damage that's going to get pumped into your Rampage. So this is why Hecarim is on this countdown. Now, as far as your runes go here, I'm recommending Conqueror, because with Conqueror, Hecarim, especially when you're going attack damage Hecarim, is going to be so hard to kill, and he's also going to be dealing so much damage. It should be very easy as well on Hecarim to get to max stacks with Conqueror, and it makes you very hard to duel in the jungle, so watch out for Hecarim in 12-17. And a bit like Graves, if you are going to full clear, guys, put another point in your Q at level 3. This will expedite your clear. Now the next champion, a bit like Hecarim, is residing in the jungle and got changed a lot in 12-17, this being Maokai. And we haven't talked about Maokai jungle for years. It's been so long. So what's happening to Maokai jungle is that your Q is dealing more damage to monsters, and your passive's heal is actually going to heal you for more, so your clear speed will be healthier. Also your E, so your saplings, these are no longer going to deal damage based off the target's maximum HP, so their base damage has increased. This means for Maokai jungle, your clear is going to be a lot quicker. And as far as the runes you go, I'm going to recommend you guys to go Predator. So ideally what you want to be doing is clearing 3 camps, recalling, getting your boots, and then just running on the map and ganking lanes. Once you get to level 3, you are online, you can gank, you're one of the best ganking champions in the game, and with Predator, it pretty much means that someone is going to die 100%. You just want to make sure, guys, in the early game that you protect your second buff. You do not want to get invaded by a strong early game jungler, but once you've got out of the early game, make sure you start building towards your turbo Chem Tank, because when you pair this with Predator, the movement speed is kind of crazy, and the amount of utility you bring to a team fight, it is going to be nuts. So Maokai jungle is another champion to consider for the 12-17 Rift. Now heading down to the bot lane here, 180 carry who got changed kind of drastically in 12-17 is Misfortune. So what the balance team have done here is they're kind of encouraging you guys to max your Q and not your E, because before this patch you were running Comet with Misfortune and then maxing your Make It Rain, and it's a pretty frustrating play style, right, especially to play against, because it really sounds something more like a mid lane setup, right, where you're like a long range mage but you're an AD carry. You're based on attack damage. So that's why Riot have buffed your Q in the attack speed crit version of Misfortune, and that's why this rune page here that I'm recommending will press the attack, and Inspiration is your secondary tree with Biscuit Delivery, because mana is still going to be important on Misfortune, is going to be the premier rune page. Just make sure as far as your build goes, guys, I mean, you can go Kraken Slayer, but we do want to be going a crit based mythic, so that's very important. Nocturne, and then following this up with Collector, the crit from this, the lethality, you will be one-shotting people, and then finishing that off with Infinity Edge. And remember, the crit works with your ultimate now. It's going to be nuts on Misfortune, and she's still going to be very, very strong during the laning phase because she is MF, so her identity is still there. It's just that you'll be dealing probably even more damage, and you won't be so reliant on sitting back and using your ultimate from far range. You can actually mix it with those champions who are close range to you and one-shot them as well. Now, moving on to honestly probably one of the most underrated picks in 12-17, this is Nocturne in the mid lane. Now, you might consider playing Nocturne in the top lane, especially if it's a good matchup, but we've even seen Duanbe, a world champion, play Nocturne in the last week or so in the mid lane in a Chinese pro game. And this was before the buffs to Nocturne in 12-17. So what are the buffs? Well, the fact that your attack speed ratio has increased is awesome, because this will make your laning phase, well, just better, right? You'll be attacking more often. If you're running something like Lethal Tempo or Conqueror, you'll be stacking that quicker. Your wave clear is better because you're auto-attacking more, of course. And what's also happening is that your passive, so your Umbra Blades, the cooldown is decreasing. And remember, you heal off your passive as well. So going down by 1 second, the cooldown is great for Nocturne. Exactly the same as your attack speed ratio buff. This affects your wave clear, also your trading. So Nocturne in the mid lane is going to be a very interesting pick. As far as your runes go, you can go Lethal Tempo, especially if you're against melee champions, because you can stack it very easily. But I'd highly recommend, guys, running Ultimate Hunter in your secondary tree, because you do want your paranoia to be on a lower cooldown. So you shove waves and then you just roam around the map. So if you're thinking about dominating from the mid lane and playing an attack damage roaming champion, Nocturne is honestly one of the best. Now, heading down to the bot lane again, we're going to talk about a champion who is getting changed in 12-17, and it might come as a bit of a surprise, but for Sett, yes, you can play him in the top lane, but for Sett support, the reason why this champion is so broken in 12-17 is because his phase break is slow, so your E, it increased by 20%, so it's now 70%. When you pair this with Glacial, I mean, if you look at these stats here, this is without the buff, by the way, he's still an A tier support with over a 50% win rate, and this is in high elo. In over 450 matches to have a 50.5% win rate, very, very respectable. Throw in the face breaker buff from 12-17, no doubt these stats are going to get even better, so make sure you guys get around it before everyone else does. And even though you might not be able to make use of the AD ratio buff in your W, so your Haymaker, which was the other buff to Sett in 12-17, because you will be going chem tank and probably not any attack damage via your items, so okay, we don't make use of that, but the slow in face breaker, guys, like this to go up to 70%, it makes you so threatening as a support. Just please make sure you're running Hex Flash, because you really need this when you don't have your flash. Make sure you're controlling the bottom brushes with sweepers and control wards. It makes you such a big threat, especially against champions at the moment and AD carries. Most of them are pretty immobile who are being played in the meta, so if you can get onto them with Glacial and the extra slow now in your phase breaker, GG bot lane. Now, speaking of the top lane, guys, if you actually do want to play a top lane champion, well, it's impossible for me not to put AAtrox with Eclipse on a broken builds video. This, honestly, if I was going to do an actual countdown, would easily be number 1. The champion with Eclipse is just so busted. Do I really have to elaborate on this? Like, even when you get Serrated Dirk, the lethality you get, you'll one-shot the enemy top laner with Ignite as well. Like, who can beat an AAtrox in a 1v1? Like, I've seen it so many times as well. People will pick Aurelia into AAtrox thinking, oh my god, it's such a big counter, but Aurelia actually loses just because AAtrox is so busted. So maybe some of the counters here would work, so stuff like Pantheon, because you can close that gap when AAtrox presses his Q. Teemo would still work very well because of the range. Also Cassiopeia, you can slow down the AAtrox with your W. So there are certain picks, but not many people play these champions in the top lane. So AAtrox, you can easily blind pick him, knowing that even if you do get countered by like an Aurelia, you can easily still win that matchup. And you can see, this is in Challenger, by the way, 5,000 matches and close to a 20% pick rate as a top laner is kind of unheard of. So crazy champion at the moment, especially when you go Eclipse. So make sure, guys, if you are playing the top lane and there are no nerfs somehow to AAtrox nor Eclipse, so make sure you're picking him and abusing him until those nerfs actually happen. Now, heading into the jungle, another champion I probably shouldn't have to elaborate too much on. This is Bel'Veth with your typical Kraken Slayer into Blade of the Rune King. Because of the on-hit damage here, the attack speed, it is just ridiculous on a champion who is innately broken. The amount of damage you deal, and of course remember the damage reduction in your E, when you actually turn into like that little ball thing, you pretty much take no damage too. It's interesting here as well that players in higher reloads actually running sudden impact in their runes. Because of the buff to sudden impact, the extra lethality you're getting, it really amplifies your damage. And because on Bel'Veth, with the amount of Qs and dashes you have from your Void Surge, it really makes sense to go sudden impact. And you can see that Bel'Veth's ban rate of 20% in Challenger around the world. It really goes to show how annoying lots of players think this champion is, and this opinion is well grounded, because for a champion to have over a 52.5% win rate against the best players in the world goes to show how broken she is, even after the nerfs she has copped in recent times. Now, heading back down to the bot lane here, this is another champion who probably doesn't need much detail, because you guys should know that Janna, when you're running Glacial Augment and Moonstone Renewer, the champion is just so hard to defeat. It's so frustrating to play against as well if you're any melee champion in the game to run into a Howling Gale, which then procs Glacial, so you're slowed by even more, and if you jump on a carry who's next to a Janna, they're impossible to kill because of Janna's Eye of the Storm max with Moonstone Renewer, the extra shield power you get, with revitalizing her runes as well. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's just too much to deal with. And a bit like Bel'Veth, this champion, despite getting nerfed, is still just innately OP, so it doesn't really matter what the actual nerfs were. Janna, because of the Q buff, the actual speed it travels now, you don't even have to put any more points in this, so just 1 point at level 1, that's all you need really, because this will proc Glacial and it's so consistent now because of that speed increase. Just make sure, guys, if you are going to elo inflate yourself by picking Janna, you're maxing your E and then your W before your Q. So Janna, another support on this countdown. Like, if you don't want to play Sett, Janna, amazing champion, especially if you have a very scaling AD carry next to you, like maybe a Twitch or a Sivir. Once you get to 2 to 3 items, the game is over. Now, the last champion on this countdown, guys, to consider picking in 12-17, this is Jax in the top lane. And I know what you're thinking, Jax, oh my god, like, he's so obviously OP. Well, yes, he is, but kind of an interesting setup here that I'm actually going to recommend to you guys is to go Grasp with the Undying Jax. So I know lots of you will be going Lethal Tempo, but Grasp is actually really, really good when you know you don't beat the enemy champion in extended trades. So Grasp is just amazing when you're looking for short trades. And using this around your Counter-Strike, this gives Jax a ridiculous amount of sustain and makes his trading potential so good. Very, very hard to actually out-trade a Jax with Grasp because of the HP this will give you. And remember, we're not really playing Jax to dumpster during the laning phase. Of course, you can pick Jax to counter champions like maybe Camille, maybe Wukong in the top lane, right? But we're picking this champion to get to Divine Sundra and then to Frozen Heart in particular. That's your really big spike, because once you do get Frozen Heart, the amount of armor you get, the ability haste, it's a really powerful spike, and with Divine Sundra, you will have all the damage you will ever need. Just make sure you max your W first and you should be sweet. So those were the 10 builds and champion combinations, if you like, guys, to abuse in 12-17. The patch is now live, so let me know what you think and how you actually go with maybe some of these setups in the comment section, and make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future Season 12 content. And until our next video, this has been Eggs. Bye.